festival, the charge for each,
It's a charge, it's like,
it's the same?
it's like a 60-40 kind of thing. So you get 60, we keep 40, whatever, it's a split between the system.
And how do we know what that amount is?
We'll show you how much we charged, and then we'll make sure that he has information that he can do the calculations. Just like a 60-40 split.
Okay.
So that's something that,
Okay, yeah, I do.
that Mr. Dupnick's office can take care of.
Okay, we're gonna, this is the billing, just continue on, this list of concerns. Okay, you wanna go one by one, that's inconsistent
Yeah. So we
reporting
talked
inspections?
So we talked about the inconsistent, because I'm ready to shut them down, do whatever we need to do, but we just need to be consistent.
Okay, well, we got 2 reports 2 days in a row that showed it went from 82 to 96. Is that true? Okay,
All right, and then the weekly reports to the city, so we can follow up, because we need to be able to follow up then as they do the inspections, because I think at this point, they haven't finished all of the inspections as of yet, for the, whatever the number is, 115. The scoring doesn't reflect in reference to the establishment. They have to be able to reinforce as much as they can if you find, rodents or pests. I mean, I know you can take off 3 points, but there's also cleanliness that you have to do. And if you look at it, it'll say something in reference to, so there's no evidence of rodents or other animals, so no evidence of contamination. So they don't have 18, they should have, if there's bugs there, it should be 18, 19, and cleanliness and those kind of things would make sure that the score reflects what is actually going on. Because this form, we just adopted what is already had on file. So we need to be able to really say.
does this form need to be updated?
No, the form is actually, you took it straight from what they do for health inspections for the state of Texas. So we just, it's our form, certificate form to be able to do that. But this form is what we're gonna keep a file so that we can go forward. But if there's problems with no inspection control, and you see animals, and you put it in the note, if you put in the note that you actually took the time to write that there were dead insects, then definitely anything that do with insects, they fail. So that's what I'm saying. So the score
Okay.
would be reflective as to what really happened.
Where's the context, okay, how you score it? Is there a separate,
If you look on the side, okay, if you.
I see the score, but where does it tell you who gets the score? And what the score is if you find insects or find rodents?
You take 4 points off for anything in that first category, you take 3 points off for anything in the second category,
Okay.
from 100. And at the top, you take 5 points off from the top.
Okay, so if you find rodents, you take 3 points off.
You take 3 points off, but you also should say, if you find there's no evidence of insect contamination, and there is contamination, you should take off 3 points, but you also take off for no evidence of rodents or other animals that you do as well, because there was also rat droppings in reference to
Is
the
there
monster.
an example of one of those?
Well, they don't take off, let me see what the one for, if you look at the one that they have for Sonic, for example, in the note at the bottom, it's dated 2/19 for the inspection. It's saying dead insects in ice machine. You see that one? Okay.
I can probably read it, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. But they took off no evidence for insect contamination, so they took off 3 points, but no evidence of rodent. They didn't have any evidence of rodent or other animals. They had rat droppings as well in the kitchen, as well in the storage facility, so they should take off.
That's not noted.
Correct.
Well, I mean, how can we know that they were there if it's not noted?
But take that same position. If there's issues with the bugs, and then later on in the inspection, when she's talking to us, she's saying, oh yeah, there were rat droppings in the storage area, but it's not noted here. I agree. So that way, if we took off all the points that definitely need to come off, then the inspection
Okay.
gets lower and lower, and shouldn't have passed.
Do you want a city employee to go with her while they do the inspection to be sure she takes the right amount off?
Because Judge, if I do that, then I'm not going to do all the inspections.
That's right.
You know, you're gonna have to count on the county and providing a competent individual up there to do the inspections.
Judge, all these employees have just been hired and they're still in the training process. And it's not like there is a school out there. There is schools that we don't want to have any inspections for a month for them to go to, so they can pay to go to school. Or we do an OTJ, which is on-job training. And it takes about a year to get an inspector trained to where they're in pretty good shape to go out on their own and not miss a lot. But I've been inspecting for almost 30 years, and I can tell you right now, you miss stuff. It happens.
To me, Judge, when you look at this list from Floresville, the key one is number, 1, for number 4. We have a new program, we haven't done this for the city before, and it's communications. You know, we just, you know, I don't know, initially, you know, and we're looking at 2 months. I assume we're looking at 2 months. Because, you know, we're into the 3rd month, and so, there is perhaps inconsistencies. There's inconsistencies in, you know, what, if I'm the inspector, what I'm saying to you as a city is not what you're hearing. That doesn't make you wrong. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that maybe I'm saying something or I'm writing something and I'm not writing it the way you want to hear it. And the way that that's going to be improved is that, you know, we're going to have a weekly meeting or 2 meetings a month or once a month to where whoever it is, whether it's you and Mr. Baker and the inspector, but where you have a face-to-face and you have, or your representative, whoever it happens to be, so that we understand the communication. Because to me, that this is what it is that what there are inconsistencies. I'm with you. When you have the rodent droppings listed at the bottom, but you didn't score it up here, that's an inconsistency. And that's something you need to be looking at, and maybe you are, and sitting down with your inspector and saying, hey, if you put it down here, you better put it up here, and if you put it up here, you better put it down there. Because you want to know, because you're the enforcer, you want to know that if you're going to go enforce, that you can have confidence in what was put here. I mean, am I stating that properly?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Commissioner Wiley, you're 100% right. It has to be what they see. When I go out with them, and I try to go once a week, I haven't done any in Floresville yet, but I go once a week with the inspectors to make sure they're still carrying on. And I send the other inspector who did it for a year with them off and on, just to make sure they're staying caught up with what they're supposed to be doing on how to do it. But we had another issue on the grease trap, that they only marked off 3 points. Well, that's all that's on there. Actually, she had forgot it the first time. I said, you go back and correct that, because that needs to be on there. That's an important thing, especially to the city of Floresville. It's important.
Now, I am going to, and I know I talk, but that's me. The other end of this is that if I'm the city of Floresville, and I'm sitting over there and you're sitting over here, I made a contract with the county. Now, I understood, I guess, when I made the contract, that we were gonna hire a new inspector person. But I expect the work to be done, and I expect it to be right. And so, we've got a two-way street. It's.
Yeah, because I'm going to depend on these reports for
Yes.
TCEQ. One of the things I told TCEQ, because they did stick their hands and say, you're not doing what you need to do in reference to the grease is showing up at my plant. Literally, you can see the foam on top of the sewer plant. When they see that kind of foam at the top of the sewer plant, it means somebody's directly pouring grease into our system.
Yep.
We're having all kind of clog issues. So I told them what I would do is, because we hadn't been doing our inspections like we should have, because when we stopped using county, the city should have done it themselves. I said, I'm going to an outside agency to do my inspections, and they're gonna verify for us, the third party. So it's kind of like I have another enforcement arm that's gonna verify that these grease traps are done. It is so important for me, for the grease traps, because as I'm sitting here trying to get a new sewer plant, I have to take care of what I have. And so that's really important. So that's why they're asking for weekly reports, because I have to give it to TCQ. And so if I have these inconsistencies, I can't send a report, but it is so important so that I don't get the penalty, because I have a $10,000 a day penalty hanging over my head if I don't come to compliance.
It seems to me that you guys need to have a meeting face-to-face soon, and then you probably ought to meet every other week or a month or something until you're fairly confident, and then maybe once a month for a while until, and then once everybody's comfortable and confident with each other, then that wouldn't be necessary at all.
Yeah, at some point in time, Ms. Turner felt the need not to contact me anymore and started going through Commissioner File with this. And at that point, I felt I was out of the loop, so there's no reason for me to even mess with
You're
it.
forward, we're gonna start communicating.
Yeah, and that's what I'm
Okay.
trying to do.
Okay.
I just think,
each one needs to get a copy of the contract and understand what the contract really states, because what I read Friday with Dana is kind of different what we're hearing this morning too, or with the pay bill. And they need to pull out that contract and understand what's written between the county and the city. And basically, the contract is what you presented us, Edwin, from Stockdale.
That was one that was drawn up by the county attorney back then. It wasn't my contract.
Well, that's what she said. You presented, Dana said.
I gave it to Dana. I
Yeah.
found it and gave it to Dana because it was one that was given to us, that given to me, that our previous county attorney drew up and.
And all I care about is what the contract states, as long as we do what that contract states. That's my main concern.
Yeah, I mean,
And another concern that probably, I don't know, maybe we can do is, when you send that person to go inspect,
Mhm.
she said, you said that it was in training,
mhm.
she goes by herself sometimes?
Sometimes she has to, yeah.
And what makes her qualify?
Well, there aren't any qualifications for.
Oh, there's
for
no
that.
qualification for inspection?
No, okay, the qualified ones, actually, I actually checked around with some of them, and most of them want 50 to 60,000 a year to do the inspections. That's what they're making with San Antonio, Austin, wherever else.
Is there continuing education that this person?
There
has
used to be, but we're looking some, in fact, I told Ms. Turner right before we really ever got this thing rolling, if they ran across anything, let us know, because I'm more than willing to send, my employees to training, as needed. And, we haven't, I told them to look for some, and everything they found's been in Houston or Dallas, and it's been a 4-hour this or 4-hour that, but I'm sure there's something out there somewhere, we just haven't stumbled across it yet. I can get Christina to call TDA, or Department of State Health Services. They're the ones that we work with too, especially these mobile food carts, and find out if they got anything going on. If there's something on the line, maybe, I don't know.
If there's any education, continuing education that she can attend yearly, there's always new things that are coming up.
There used to be one, in fact, I'm leaving today, Mike and I have to go for our septic continuing ed. There used to be a sponsored continuing ed for health inspections, and the state did away with it. We used to do 16 hours a year there, and they did away with it and haven't done it.
Well, we have somebody wanting to pay us, and so.
Can I?
And so we
It's not the right one.
We need an invoice.
We need an
But
invoice
what
so we
I
can
wanna
get
be
paid.
sure we've,
It's
and the main one is like was brought up, the communications between the city and the county. What else concerns that you have that you want?
I think you've covered most of my concerns in reference to that. Again, I just need to be able to invoice you so that I can take care of that. And then I hear in the communications, my staff is willing to meet, I'm willing to meet, but I just need to stress the importance to the city. Of course, health and safety is important. I have a TCEQ I have to answer for. That grease trap manifest is so important.
When y'all have a meeting, just,
So let's
stress
put
that.
in.
You did your inspections before the county started doing them?
Actually, no one was doing any inspections at all. The city of Floresville didn't do any
For how
inspections.
long?
For my estimates, between 5 to 6 years.
Judge, on
And they
the
should have.
grease trap manifest, that was kind of tough getting them going. We do request that now, and if they don't have it, they can't get it to us that day. They've been bringing them in the office, and we've been sending them over to the city hall on these. What it is, when a pumper comes out, pumps the grease trap, there's a manifest produced, and we require a copy of that. And I think the city, isn't it 3 times a year, Ms. Turner?
3 times a year they need to be
Yeah.
able to pump it, because we had some people who had emptied their grease traps and all.
Ever.
People are aware that they have to do that 3 times a year.
It went out in the letter, I think, at
Without
the
the
beginning of the
letter,
year.
they sent them, they said in the money.
And we're actually starting to enforce it. I mean, it's a slow process.
I know Steve Rouse, he works for the state.
Okay.
So, I was just reaching out, and Commissioner Fowle and I have been running across each other, and he asked me just in passing, how's everything with the county, and I have, to tell me, I'm just really having a fallout communication, just.
Okay, well, hopefully we can get communications now.
What is a food established follow-up? What do you mean by that?
We need a time effect, so if you go and someone doesn't pass, we need a time that we need to, to let us know. If someone fails, to let us know when the time has to be within 24 to 48 hours, so that I can be prepared, because how it's written, I have to, our attorney provide the letter, so that to any enforcement or any tickets, because these fines are daily fines we can issue. So if you let us know time, then we can let them know.
It really seems that there ought to be a monthly meeting or something where that that sort of thing could be discussed so it doesn't fall through the cracks.
Well, these reports are dropped off at City Hall daily
So,
on the inspection.
oh, I understand, but just so everybody's on the same page. You know, just like we need to be paid, we did a contract, we need to provide the service.
Okay, I have a question on the scoring.
Mm-hmm.
So we were talking about insect contamination and signs of rodents or other animals.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the most you can give if you have signs of insect is 3 points?
3
And-
points deducted.
And deduct it, and the most you can do if you, signs of rodents is, so if that's all you find is, you find rats and you find insects, is 6 points off?
6 or 7 points, yeah.
So they can still
They made a
score
94.
94 points and have insects and rats.
Yeah. And actually, that, I can tell you that there's a lot of cities that went to the 0 up policy because, you know, it was how many demerits against you.
Yeah.
So in other words, it'd be a 6 instead of a 94. Because that 94 is some part of a
And
misrepresentation of
this
it.
is an accurate scoring,
Yeah.
So what score that qualifies them to shut down? Will they be eligible, or the city would be eligible to shut them down? When I'm talking about, okay, like Sonic at 82, how low can they go? Or where's the point where they,
Where's the failing mark?
yeah,
Anything under 70% is failing, anything under the 60s and into the 50s, definitely need to like a 25.
But that's up to the city to decide if they're gonna shut down, not the county.
It's gonna have to be pretty bad to get to a 70.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the reason I say we make them throw away any of the high risk area stuff because we can't go off these scores.
That's going to be pretty bad if it's going to be insect. The city would like, immediately go, is prepared to shut them down. I think that was one of the conversations that Mr. Baker and I had in reference to that, was that was one of his concerns, and I assured him that we're poised and ready to do it if necessary. And it hasn't been for a long time. I mean, the city of Floresville did not do inspections for over 5 to 6 years prior to this. But we wanted to pick up that agreement and be able to do that. And like I said, I used our agreement and attached our local agreement to TCQ to say that we're gonna be doing this in reference to it. Because having a goose check ordinance and not enforcing it is nothing. So definitely this is like an enforcement arm, but we need to be able to do that.
Okay, so y'all are gonna communicate and you're gonna invoice them.
That's it.
Okay, you need to get
Yeah.
the county auditor,
I have
the permit numbers, I guess, or whatever was sent to you.
Contract.
Yeah, well, she's gonna send him the same thing she sent us.
Okay,
I'll copy Mr. Baker's.
You can send it to me, Judge.
And she can copy me with it, so make sure we get the same. Because new ones come in.
Now,
Now, are the two of you gonna get together and set up
Yes,
a
sir.
meeting?
Yes, sir.
I'm not near as busy as she is.
But I'll make the time, I promise.
Okay, good, good. Because I really think with communications, we can be where we need to be.
yes, hopefully we'll get that done. Communications.
We will get it.
Okay. I guess there's no action needs to be taken other than the communications. Yeah. So we're gonna go on. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, we'll go to number 15, Leanne Hoshak, Emergency Medical Coordinator. A, pipeline crossing permit. 1, permit number 095, Lone Star Operating LLC, Precinct 2, County Road 205. Review and approve.
yeah,
Yes. It's just a matter of Commissioner's Court.
Okay.
There's a map, but it's just, it's at.
What's the crossing?
thank you.
Let's go figure out what we ordered. What is this? Which facility? Where's 205 building come from?
You see those in the location.
5.1. That's gonna be dead air.
Okay, here we go.
This is, Martin, this is the main place. I think, crossing here, go across the Martin.
Okay. Motion? Motion by Mr. Commissioner Fowle,
I'll
second by Commissioner Donovan. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This it? Who approves it? Okay, and B, non-standard plat variance, number one, FM 541 East, 7696, precinct 2, move to discuss and take action.
Okay,
What is this one?
this one, she came before a committee this past week, was given a favorable recommendation. She owns 6.68 acres and is wanting to sell 3.48 acres. And she does have the minimum required amount of road frontage, so the committee didn't have any issues with it. Gave a favorable recommendation.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Move.
Motion by Commissioner Fowle, second by Commissioner Wiley. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, so carries. Okay, and 2, Stover Lane, 288, precinct 3, Reed, discuss and take action.
This one came before the committee last week as well, was given a favorable recommendation. The Reeds purchased 6 acres off of an old grandfathered easement that's a private road. And they wanted to convey an acre out of that to a daughter and son-in-law. And because they did not have direct frontage onto a public road, they had to come before the committee to request a variance. And since it's an old grandfathered easement, private road, it was given a favorable recommendation.
There's a motion. Motion by Commissioner Morales, second by Commissioner Fowle. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Edwin Baker, Health and Public Safety. A, review, discuss, and take action on Sutherland Springs Volunteer Fire Department and contracting with neighborhood volunteer fire departments, ESDs, to cover Sutherland Springs Volunteer Fire Department's coverage area.
And Judge, Mike Abbott, President of Sutherland Springs Volunteer Fire Department here. You want him to talk here too? Hey, it's about Sutherland Springs Volunteer Fire Department. I don't want to try to speak for them. I'd rather he speak for them.
Mr. Abbott, would you like to make? Have a seat.
Sorry, I wasn't here last week, but I ended up having district court jury summons, so I could not leave to be here. I'm here for any questions, answer anything that might come up, if I can answer them today right now, so.
Let me pull that back up, 'cause I don't know what A was. Contracting, we had talked last week, put it on hold, the contract with SSVFD, pending talking to Mike and whoever else I could get in touch with. And that evening, Mike came to my office and we were there for a couple of hours. I didn't really have I didn't get the impression that this was something that Mike was gonna be able to fix in any type of timely manner. Now, he may be here today to tell us something different, I don't know.
Well, it was in the morning, it was right after
Yeah.
I got out of jury
Right.
summons. Everybody pled out, so there was no jury.
Right.
I've been there a couple times.
And,
On the jury side, not the other side.
you saw the, agenda item, right? You familiar with what it says?
Yeah,
Okay, all right. And it's about contracting with Sutherland Springs Volunteer Fire Department. Do you have anything new to bring to tell us about?
as far as.
Other than what we've already talked about, I mean, is there any way to keep it running?
I think at this point, with the once you and I had talked, we talked Thursday night, prior to Commissioner's Court, and then we talked Monday morning, about 10:30, 11 o'clock,
Right.
till about lunch. And I had not been to court, didn't know what transpired, and so I got an email about comments from the Wilson County newspaper, you know. So I said, as soon as I can watch the video, I might have some comments. You know, I said, how can I comment on something when I don't know what transpired, you know? So, I mean, you and I talked, you know
Right.
what I mean, as far as details,
Right.
and, you know, because there was things that were. this
There's
was
still a lot of
said.
undecided things.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure, there is, you know, and if it is decided that the contract with the volunteer fire department is not conducive to the situation for the people, and for other responding agencies locally around us, then there's gonna be some wind down time, you know, like any kind of business. You just can't close your doors and everything's good to go, you know, there's things that are gonna have to be done.
Our understanding was that either Lavernia or Stockdale had answered calls for Sutherland Springs since like April or May of last year. That whenever, and it's kind of sad because when I became a commissioner, things changed, but you had a very viable group over there. And I
We ended
remember
up-
being at fires and
I believe, without looking at all the county numbers, but just from the calls I know of and the stories I read, Edward can back me up on this or not, but we had developed, and as a quote that Edward said, we literally almost brought ourselves out from the ashes.
yes.
Referring back to the early mid-nineties, you know, there was a problem with the fire department back then. I wasn't even around there, you know. It's been an uphill battle, you know. The VFD is a never-ending story. There's a goal line that keeps moving. NFPA, ISO ratings, you know, there's all kinds of stuff that go on. You know, so it's a never-ending battle, you know, there is no end goal, you know. You can see it, but it's always gonna be far away. I do have a few things to comment first before we go any further about some of the items that were stated and factual, whether remarks, whatever. I'd like to clarify things. It started at about 25:20 on last week's video, and it did say about this was Edwin Baker at the time, about the July 28th meeting that did occur. And the second meeting, it was happened sometime before Christmas. We were not aware of that meeting, we were not invited to it. There was a comment about, you know, we can't take 6 more months, which I agree, you know, the people need coverage, you know. We're there for the people, we're not there for us, you know. This is all volunteers, it costs us money to show up, you can just go train or whatever, it costs you gas money, you know, just to get there. So being a volunteer, it costs volunteers money, that's everybody, I'm not just talking Sutherland Springs, I'm talking when you volunteer for any organization, it costs you personal money. So anyways, it was saying that we couldn't take, the county saying that we couldn't take another 6 months. But I actually had in my text Sunday at about 8:10 at night, stated that we would appreciate 2 or more weeks additional time needed, because at that point, on Thursday night, get the call, we had been talking to him Thursday night, and trying to coordinate, people, you know, with their work schedules, so one of them was even out of the whole area totally, you know, because he works for a service company. We couldn't get a meeting together, that's why I text back to the meeting.
That's your chief?
Huh?
Is that your chief?
No, it's the vice president.
Oh,
Sometimes he's in Oklahoma, sometimes in South Texas, sometimes Houston, sometimes, you
well,
know, DeWitt County, so. We have had responses since then. We have responded. Let's see. As far as the calls, you know, it was stated, Chief Baker, Fire Marshal Baker, that there was 40 calls, it sounded like, from Stockdale itself. And Commissioner Wiley had stated that it was suggested from ESD President number 1 that 41 calls or there may even be more, from May, that Sullivan Springs did not respond to in any way, shape, or form, basically. So there is no discrepancy here. What I've done, and I can get you copies if you want them, but I mean, or you can go to dispatch and get yourself, but I have a total from dispatch itself, their actual case card reports. Had to be told how to read them, because they read differently than our personal reports. And so for the addresses, the agency called out, all that, so I took a couple days, dissected it, and had it vetted. And for the total year, from January 1 through December 31st, there was a total of 41 call records for Sutherland Springs. 2 of those are actually a data input error. They're actually a Stockdale call. They put a double SFD in there instead of SFD. So that would bring us down to 39. Then we also had another call that was disputed because it's two call reports on the same address, only because more aid was brought in. We were not off the call yet, so we were still added to that report too. So that would put us to 38. And total of no response, there was 10 calls for the whole year for Sutherland Springs Fire on their primary. And out of those, Stockdale was on there 4 times, and Lavernia was on there 6. Sutherland Springs primary that we made were acknowledged, and the acknowledges are, sometimes you get 1022 down the way. There was a gas leak on 97 one time, it was Smith's Propane, the neighbor called in smelling gas. So, you know, we get 1022, and everyone actually made that particular call. So those are 15. We had from mutual aid requests from Lavernia that wanted us to go there. We were toned out 9 times. We gave 5 of those. 2 of them we were canceled en route, and 2 of them, you know, we didn't have personnel or response on 2 of those calls. Floresville, there was 1 request for us to help them out, and that was an acknowledged, and that was acknowledged, but because there was going to be a length of time before a tanker could get there, they called in Stockdale to help out with more brush trucks. Stockdale asked us for help 3 times, and we were there 3 times. As far as our mutual aid coming to us from Lavernia, we requested them 8 times, and they gave 6. 2 of them were canceled en route. Stockdale, we requested Stockdale Fire 4 times, and we gave 4 times, and they gave 4 times. So those are the numbers. It's 38 total. It ends up being where there's 28 calls, one way or another, out of the 38 were made or acknowledged. So that was on the actual reports.
When was the last time that Sutherland Springs responded to a fire? I don't know, I'm asking, I don't know. The fire department.
I'll have to look at that up. I can give you.
Well, I thought you might have that, that's all.
Yeah, well, I'll have to go through. I've got these in, I've got a number to what call number it was for us up in the corners, but as far as, but they're not all in sequential order right now. I have them bunched up for Lavernia calls, Stockdale calls, Floresville calls, things like that, but I can let you know that. On the articles of incorporation, I thought it was disingenuous to bring Sutherland Springs Community Association into play here. But since that was on there, I did some calls, and it took me not much time at all, looking up the internet, making some calls, and personally, I found out that our articles of incorporation did lapse, actually on April 25th, 2014. So, but it had nothing to do with Sutherland Springs Community Association, nothing about reorganizing as a community association. 2 different file numbers through the Secretary of State's office and the Records Department.
That came through our county attorney's office.
Okay?
That came through our county attorney's office.
Yeah, from the video, it said that the information came from the ESD president #1.
No, some of it did. Well, actually, it did. That was looked up by the SD president #1, and then Catherine and her attorney looked it up. Right?
I just
So it did more, or less, they got it from the county attorney's office. They-
Yeah, I didn't hear
got
that
it
through
from
number one, but I did hear it through
Yeah.
our county. Yes.
And so by state standards, that's a periodic records report is what that is. That's, they usually do it about every 4 years, it can be longer, you know. Somehow that got slipped through the crack. That's part of my personal job as being president of the organization. I messed up, I'm taking full responsibility here in commission court publicly, that I dropped the ball on that somewhere. So that's my fault. But to file that paper, it's a minimum of $5, you know, if it's within the reporting request time, or if it's past, which they got 120 days, which this was obviously, it's obviously past 120 days from where they told me where the notice was sent. It's a maximum of $25. So it's a $25, filling out the form and send it in, and that's a corrected situation. So, is there anything else?
Well, I get the reason that we're here for, I mean, I know you got a lot of good questions there, but you're gonna answer them. The reason I get here is you're gonna be able to, manage the volunteer fire department. I think that's the whole issue that we're having.
Well, on that note, in the video, Commissioner Wiley stated, you know, it seems like a leadership problem, you know, and I agree with you, you know. You have to go back in the video and watch it, but, you know, you stated about a leadership problem, you know. And,
Well,
so,
if I stated that, I stated wrong. I don't know that it's a leadership problem, it's just a volunteer problem. I mean, the problem that we face, and we've faced it in Stockdale, we face it throughout the county. You said it earlier, like
Nationally.
the moving in zone. If I stated it that way, I stated it incorrectly, because that's not the perception. I think the leadership has been fine. The problem is that, as Commissioner Gamez, I think just stated, is if Sutherland Springs is toned out or toned in, or whatever it is that you tone, if you're called to a fire, can you respond? And that's not, as I said, when I came on board, Sutherland Springs was, you guys were everywhere, and you were good. But we know, I know there was a call last year in Stockdale. You know, I spotted a fire and called, and we had one guy. That's all we had at that point. And it's a little better now, but it's a problem, and it isn't a matter of leadership. It's just a matter of if there is a fire in your area today, can you respond? And if you can't respond, will you be able to respond next week or the week after? That's the whole issue with this, as far as I see it. Maybe somebody else sees it different.
Well, Mike, like, I agree with Albert, the reason we're here is to move on. Now, if you're not here to tell us that you're gonna be there every time that the SS gets called out, the fire department, well, there's no reason to even be talking. I think we need to be moving on, because, you know, we need coverage for us, for Sutherland Springs.
oh, I agree, you know, my point here is, I'm not here just to take up air and space there, you know.
No,
There was
I'm glad you brought
there
it
were some
up.
things that did not
Yes.
equate, things that were not right, things that were distorted, you know, some misinformation possibly, you know, and I wanted to clarify that, you know. And especially about some of the
I'm glad you
Springs
brought it in.
Association, you know, and especially Tammy Reed's name was brought up, because she's the, one of the signers of that, you know, so.
Mhm.
So I wanted to clear that up, you know, that they have, you know, the two organizations are two separate organizations altogether, you know, and,
Well, we were talking about what was on paper.
yeah.
And, you know, in one of the documents the county attorney had, they're not separate. And that's what brought up, and there was nothing ever said about Tamara that was meant in a negative state. It was more or less, we need to talk to her, because she is the person to talk to over there. That was pretty much all that was about.
Right.
Okay. So, moving forward, are we gonna be able to look to the Sutherland Springs Volunteer Fire Department for any kind of assistance as far as, and what was it that elapsed, in April of 14?
April 25th, 2014.
Okay.
That's the date that, you know, they're telling me from the Secretary of State's Records Department, that it's called an involuntary,
So actually, articles of incorporation.
yeah, you know,
Okay, so-
relinquishment, or involuntary relinquishment, you know.
We really still couldn't even make an agreement with you, because y'all don't.
Right now, for sure, you know, because I can't guarantee you there's gonna be somebody there today. We don't, you know, this may be part of a plan that any department should have. You know, we don't have a plan in place where, every week, the members would call in and say, okay, I'm gonna be available on these times, you know? We don't have that, we never had that in play, you know, it's just kind of like, you know, most of the time people were there. But the economy picked up, and then all of a sudden, we had a lot more employed volunteers, you know? When people are unemployed, they're there a lot more, you know? Edwin knows that, you know? When people aren't working, you know, instead of sitting around bored or watching Oprah, you know, they're at the station, you know, or they're ready to make calls.
Well, it's not just unemployed, they were working 40 hours a week, 5 days a week, now they're working 12 to 16 hours a day, 6 days a week, where's the family time at now?
Yeah.
So, Ms. Shepard, can we move on in contracting with the Stockdale, California, or? do we
Well,
have-
let me say this, they don't have to be incorporated with the Secretary of State's office to receive funds. They just need to be an organization that's there to do whatever they promise they're gonna do.
Well, as far
That
as,
which just, has got to be a way, a lot of times, the organizations we contract with will send us information on their incorporation and it's wrong. And so that's why we check it. So I don't think that's not the issue. The issue is whatever that group is, do y'all want to contract?
Well,
Can we contract with them?
if they can respond, yes. If they can't respond,
I'm
then,
just saying their
Then the
corporate
funds need to go-
status should not have any effect on it.
right, okay.
and the only reason I brought up the leadership comment that was on the video, and I went back 2 or 3 times to make sure that I had my notes right. I didn't want to say anything that was not right, or disingenuous, was that if, unless you're determined to divide the area up into Vernia and Stockdale response, which right now probably would be a beneficial thing to the people of the coverage area. It's gonna put a strain on both those departments, you know, we you know, once we were at our level of response, you know, where there was never a call that wasn't responded to, always a truck showing up, personnel, multiple stuff, sometimes we had 2 calls at the same time, we were able to handle things, you know. The level of service that the Stockdale Livonia has been used to over the years that we've developed is not there. We have not maintained that same level of service as far as making our own calls and being able to respond to help them out. That is a fact that's undisputable.
So what we're looking for is coverage for that area.
Right.
Can I say something, Judge? Jason and I, who's the chief of Livonia, have talked at great length about this, and one of my things that I've been, and I think I even expressed this opinion to Mike, was neither one of us want to see it go away. The only problem we got is we have the agencies that fund us breathing down our necks going, what are y'all doing? You know, what's going on with this? And my suggestion has always been, we come in there, cover it for this year, and instead of doing a whole contract with, I talked to Dana about this Thursday or Friday, whatever day it was, and the county attorney suggested that we do an amendment to the Stockdale and ESD 1 contract to help take care of this for this year. And of course, you know, go from there and give, I don't want to see it go away. Never have wanted to see it go away. Never does ESD 1 or Livonia Fire. What we'd like to do is be able to kind of keep it as much in place and intact as we possibly can. And then fill in and run it, you know, fill in and cover it for this year and see if we can get it built back up, or Mike and them can get it built back up. I told Mike, if for whatever reason, if Sullivan Springs goes away, he's welcome in my department. I'm sure he's welcome in Floresville's department. We don't wanna lose volunteers, and we don't wanna lose them over there, but, you know, we have entities that are over us about money.
What are
Like,
your
when you say
suggestions?
entities like the city,
The city and the SD1, they're the ones that fund the other two fire departments, yes,
okay, but we also fund y'all on the volunteer side,
that is correct.
so y'all can take covers on the outside skirts of the ESD. Is that correct?
No, you actually, the county contracts with fire departments to cover a designated area. That's their ESN, like 911 call area. Anything outside of that, you're not contracting with, so.
But
well,
you respond under
But we
mutual
respond
aid.
under mutual aid agreements, that's
Mutual,
correct.
well, the mutual aid is the money that we gave, we'll give to the ESBs, right? Well,
No,
what the money
you're
used for?
confusing what we've talked about with Eagle Creek EMS because they cover outside of their ESD,
Yeah.
giving them that money to cover outside of there.
Cover the outside.
Right, well, Stockdale Fire and Livonia Fire don't cover outside of our districts. Our districts are what they are. And then we get requests by mutual aid to go over to these other areas. Eagle Creek EMS covers outside of their political subdivision, which is ESD1. or-
Obviously, Sutherland Springs has their own district.
Yes.
Yeah, there is an, there is an
And
ESN
that's
for
what
that.
we've been
Yeah.
funding. We've been
Correct.
funding Sutherland Springs for.
To cover that area.
What are your suggestions to get the coverage to that for the next year?
If the Commissioner's Court approves, we, you know, contract with the city of Stockdale and ESD1 to cover it and leave whatever's there. It doesn't belong to Stockdale or ESD1 or Livonia Fire. The equipment that's there, it doesn't belong to us. It belongs to Sutherland Springs Volunteer Fire Department.
We're not worried about equipment, we're about coverage right
And,
now.
and just cover that area, you know, depending on, you know, split it down the middle or whatever. If, you know, I would like to say, try to do a per call deal, but I try not to get into those because we've had that problem before in that area.
Yeah, who went to the last one, who's gonna
Yeah,
take the next one?
right.
Well, if somebody draws a line somewhere,
Well, the lines are already pretty much drawn, we'll just split it down the middle, which is mainly 539 up till you get to, across the Cicelo. And then Jason and I have looked down and drawn some lines that we could both agree with, to live with for this year and get over, you know, get forward, move forward with this. And, you know, if Mike has, and I was hoping he was coming with information, going, I got 6 guys that said they're gonna start hanging around and be around and be more viable and
There was a
I drop
couple,
this and move on.
there was a couple dead ends that I pursued this last couple of weeks, but from what I saw in the video last week, you know, if y'all take time to review that, it's about 20 minutes, review this stuff, because of the stuff that, you know, I've said specifically concerning you, Commissioner Wiley, you know, so you can verify, you know, what I,
I mean, mainly we're here to decide, and you can put it off another 2 weeks. It's not gonna kill anybody. It's not gonna make or break anybody. It's just gonna keep it, you know, moved on.
Well, it's back
One of the
to-
things.
Is it gonna change in 2 weeks?
Yeah, excuse me, let me explain. I wanted to tell Mike something. I just thought of this. The numbers that Commissioner Wiley threw out there were numbers that we were given by DSD. Even these numbers aren't accurate. I can tell you a lot of times we go to domino calls that don't get toned out. And so those calls aren't accurate, call volumes, they never have been, even ours aren't. But the Commissioner Wiley was brought up numbers that were given to us by somebody else.
and also that it was stated by Commissioner Wiley also, you know, about the president of VSD1, that there might be a going out of the area of going, could be out of line and concern from their ESD lawyer.
Actually, the ESD president said that the ESD lawyer did bring up some concerns about them going out of their area an extraordinary amount. In other words, they were almost making as many calls outside of their area as they were inside. Now, you know, one of the domino effects from this too is like everything I have now in the Stockdale area, if I need help, I automatically call Livonia and I skip Southern Springs because they haven't responded. I've started doing that in the last 3 or 4 months. So, you know, it's kind of a domino effect.
so if you haven't got any suggestions on,
The suggestion is to split the area, and split the funding, and we'll do an amendment to the contract, which the contracts haven't been signed, so therefore I'll redo the contract between Stockdale and ESD number one to split that money.
ESD number one, since they're not there, are they, okay with this?
Yeah, that would,
Okay.
they were there at that meeting, so.
This is gonna take money away from Sutherland Springs, which if they have any hopes of reorganizing, it's gonna make it more difficult on them.
That's possible, yes.
But we,
I mean, we're gonna go out for 1 year.
Yeah.
I mean, what do y'all got in expenses, like, say $10,000?
The only thing that I can tell you that is, and I'm not trying to prolong this by any means, you know, for the department or for the coverage of the area, for the people against Livonia or against Stockdale by any means. The Southern Springs Community Association has their meetings tonight. They have their meetings same days as y'all, at 7 o'clock. So they've asked me to come in today to give them an update. You know, I can let them know what's transpired in the last few weeks, in the last year, give them full details of what's been going on. See if they got somebody, you know, that you know, they know that is willing to take over and, you know, help it blossom back to where it was, you know, or not. I'm not trying to prolong this, you know, but anyway.
Any suggestions?
Can we wait 2 more weeks without anything happening?
Basically, as far as toning out for Stockdale, Livonia, you can treat this as if, you know, for some fluke, all those Southern Springs vehicles were down, they couldn't respond, you know? We need time to fix them, you know? You could treat it as, in that respect, you know, because sometimes we got a tanker down, sometimes we got a brush truck down, you know? And I'm not trying to prolong it by any means.
Well, I'm not, you know, I don't wanna shut it down completely up. I'm hoping somebody come out with 6, 7 people to get it
Well,
started again, but
that's pretty,
I don't think it's gonna happen.
They have to be, some level of training has to be involved in there. Mike's very aware of it, very supportive of
Yeah,
that.
and even with the county contract, you know, there's a level that's requested and not just, well, it's actually required by contract. You know, there has to be listed as a structural fire department, which Southern Springs has in the past few years, gotten $20,000 a year.